I am, if you don't know me, I'm Abby Cameron. I'm CEO here with Three Rivers Three Rivers Community Foundation. It's been a long week. Really happy to go over the 2024 grant cycle today and some new things that we are offering. To get started, we are planning, as I said, we're recording the webinar. We'll post that on our website as well as on Facebook probably after next week's session, so we can choose between the two webinars we're hosting. The content we're presenting is the same for both webinars. The only difference will be anything that comes up in the Q&A, which we will get into at the end. I also want to introduce Kelsey Gardner. Kelsey is in her second week here at 3RCF as our new program manager. She's going to be kind of keeping an eye on the chat and helping behind the scenes with this. As program manager, Kelsey will be getting up and running with being the go-to for our nonprofits for our grant opportunities. So you'll get to know her more and more. I know she'll be reaching out to get to know a lot of you, and please introduce yourselves to her as well. Kelsey, actually, maybe you could put your email in the chat. That would be great. I think we're going to use, hopefully the chat is working. If your to message is sent to everyone will see your chat notice. Kelsey, actually, I think you need to change the drop down on your chat. That one just went to hosts and panelists. Does that make sense? Where it says to for your chat message? Okay, perfect. We'll figure it out as we go, everyone. Thank you so much. Okay, so what we want to talk about today is 3RCF's annual grant cycle. We are your community foundation here serving Benton and Franklin counties, and we create opportunities for perpetual giving. So that is building a community endowment for Benton and Franklin counties where donors are investing their dollars with us, and we're growing those funds and then using the proceeds and the growth to be able to distribute grants across our community. Okay, do you need my... Okay, having just a little screen trouble here. Oh, I have too many screens open. Okay. Okay, I think we got it now. Yes, okay. You can see my screen, Kelsey?
Yes, I can see it.
All right, okay. So kind of how we got to the space of making some changes to our grant cycle. 3RCF has been very, very fortunate to be able to increase our grant funding pretty dramatically over the last few years. In 2019, we were distributing around $85,000 in grants. And if you were a part of our grant cycle and our celebration of philanthropy last year, you know that we gave out, I think it was about $275,000 last year in annual grants. So lots of growth, which means 3RCF has more resources, which means we can create more opportunities. And it means together, through those resources and the work that you all do, have a more meaningful impact on our community. And the momentum to consider making some changes came from some work that 3RCF has done in strategic planning with our board members. Some of our board members participated in a grant workshop process. And we also are constantly doing learning from other community foundations, hearing about what works, kind of gathering new ideas and then interpreting them for our work in our community here. So I thought it'd be helpful to talk about what's not changing, because there's a lot that's not changing. There's just a little bit that's new. So Three Rivers is still a broad funder. We still welcome applications from across service sectors, across the community. We do not have a strict area of focus that we're narrowing into. We really still consider ourselves that broad resource for grant funding. Eligibility has not changed. The application and interview process we expect to be very similar. Our process will continue to be as it was last year, accepting applications for a period of time. Our board members then do internal review, board and staff do internal review of all of the applications. We will continue with an interview process. As we've done in last year's, we simply had far too many applicants to guarantee an interview to everyone. So we have been focusing our interview process on organizations who are new to 3RCF, and organizations who are proposing a project or a program that is new, that we have not had the opportunity to learn about and consider before. So that's kind of the view that we take to determining where we offer interviews. We do a lot of work to make sure that we have good communication and relationships with the nonprofit community. So hopefully if you are not invited for an interview, you know that that means that we feel like we have a good relationship and we understand your work, and we have the information that we need to fully consider your application. And the funding available continues to come from the same sources, which is distributions from our endowed funds, and in addition to direct donations that we pool across the year. So any donations into our annual grant fund that came in starting in October of last year are pooled and will be distributed in this year's grant cycle. I'm really thrilled to share a little peek under the curtain that we already have about $100,000 in those direct donations to support this year's grant cycle. That's a record as far as I know. And I really think we are going to be very, very close to, in total, including that $100,000, having $300,000 to distribute this year. And that is a little bit of a milestone for 3RCF. I myself and the board, I think we've been really looking forward to getting to that number. It feels momentous, and I'm certain we're going to grow from there, but we're really excited to, it's looking like that will be very close to the figure for this year. So I'm very excited about that. So what are the couple of changes that I've been alluding to? We're actually going to be offering the choice of two different application pathways, two different applications. So as an applicant, you are going to be able to choose upfront which pathway is most applicable for what you are looking to get funded. I'll explain a little bit more of that before we get too far. The new pathway is offering an option for funding that's a little bit more flexible. And the whole focus is just really acknowledging that we know our partners, we trust our partners, and you know best how to do your work. So we want to find ways to be more flexible in how we support you and your work in the community. So two pathways. This is really the big change. When you go into our grant portal on July 31st, when this becomes available, you will see two different applications, and you need to choose upfront which application to start in. You can certainly review the questions for both, and you'll have the opportunity to do that. But once you are ready to submit, it's one or the other of these two applications. The first is just slightly renamed. We're calling it a program or a project grant. This is very much our traditional grant application where you're applying for a specific program that you're running or a specific project that you need to undertake or do undertake. You really are kind of giving us all of the information up front about what you are wanting funding for. So very similar to what you've experienced with us in the past if you have applied for a grant from 3RCF. The new pathway, the new application, we are calling an impact grant. So an impact grant is this version of more flexible funding where you're requesting the funding upfront to support your overall mission. And you're going to be able to report back to us at the end of the grant cycle, which is about a year later, how you use the funds to support your mission. So that's the new opportunity that we're creating within our grant cycle. And then I have some more information to share to give you a better idea of who is a good applicant for this new pathway. And I thought this was a helpful way to think about it, to kind of think about the who would be, what type of organization would be a good candidate for an impact grant. So a good candidate for an impact grant will have a history of receiving funding from 3RCF. So you've been successful in having an application funded in the past. You have a history of timely reporting and follow-up with 3RCF. Obviously, it's an important relationship, and communication is an important part of that. So hopefully those follow-up reports and things like that have been submitted on time and we have good communication. This is where you really kind of can start to hopefully see what we're intending here. So if you're an organization that, because of the sector that you're working in or because of what's happening in the community, you would consider yourself nimble. You're responding to changing community needs and opportunities throughout the year. It's a need in the community that's dynamic and changes, and your organization is then by that nature responding to that. And so what you think you're going to be delivering and doing in January has already changed by May. And so for an organization of that if this describes your organization, if you apply for a program grant or a program/project grant, a few months later, you may not be doing that program, or you may be doing that program differently, or you may need to do something different entirely just because of the nature of your work and your mission and the people that you're serving. It's an and/or, the other possible characteristic of an organization that would be a good candidate for this funding is if you operate on a mix of funding sources and you'd benefit from flexible funding so that as you receive responses from other grant makers, from donors, from funders, or from your fundraising efforts, you're putting together your mix of funding sources to support your programs. So we recognize a lot of you do a lot of grant work. A lot of you do a lot of fundraising and have donors who might be interested in supporting specific projects. So that if you had a donor who wanted to support something, you could then use those grant dollars in another area to meet your mission. So it's, as a grant maker, it's us trying to recognize the reality of that, trying to recognize that we value your work and want to support it, and that this may give you more flexibility to put your mix of funding together for a year in a more realistic and an open way between us and you as the grantee. In either case, no matter which type of organization you might be, you'd be able to tell us at the end of the grant cycle how the funding was used to support your mission. So you need to go into the process knowing that that's been part of the follow-up report, is you give us that picture at the end of what the funding was able to help you accomplish. There is one big qualification eligibility element for an impact grant, and that is that you must have received a grant from 3RCF in the last 3 years. So in the 2022, 2023, 22, or 2021 grant cycles. And so that is one of our application-based grants. You may also benefit from some direct donor gifts that Three Rivers processes. That would not qualify you technically for an impact grant. We want to know that you have a history of successful applications with us in this type of a grant cycle. Details of the grant cycle overall have not changed dramatically. The grant cycle will open on July 31st. That's when you will find it on our website, available through the grant portal, same as always. The difference in the grant portal is that you will see those 2 different applications to choose from. And again, it's one or the other. The grant application deadline is September 16th at 5 p.m. With the volume of grants that we're receiving, we cannot allow exceptions. We really do need to stick to that deadline for the fairness of all and for our process. Grants remain open, as they have been, to 501c3 nonprofits that serve Benton and Franklin counties. If you're an organization that's not located here, but you serve Benton and Franklin County residents, we ask in your application that you are able to confirm that any dollars we direct to you would be used in Benton and Franklin counties. So that needs to be something that you'd be able to track and report back to us on. Our grant awards range from $1,000 to $10,000. The average award last year was around $4,000. If you are considering a request of larger than $10,000, we recommend that you contact Kelsey and I. We'd like to just know more about your request and give you some feedback on that. As you know, our capacity and resources are growing. We hope over time we'll be able to raise that limit, and maybe it will be $1,000 to $15,000 or $20,000 in future years. But for now, we want to keep it at that $10,000 amount and carefully consider awards above that amount. So just be open with us about that, and we would be happy to give you some feedback. We will plan to announce our grant awards on or about November 1st. We are already planning the celebration of philanthropy, which will be a luncheon this year. It'll be a plated luncheon on December 3rd, and it will be at the Three Rivers Convention Center. And a reminder that all of our successful grant awardees will receive 2 complimentary tickets. We hope that your staff or a couple of board members or staff and board member will come. And as we've done in the past, that will be the evening where you receive your grant awards and recognition and celebrate with our donors and the community and our board and your board. And it's just a really fun event. And a great way to stay up to date on our deadlines is through our Facebook page and our website. So hopefully you're following us there. In general, I wanted to provide some characteristics of a successful application. Just no matter what application process you're following, these are some helpful tips, hopefully. We'd recommend that you avoid jargon and acronyms. If you do use an acronym, make sure that you spell it out the first time you use it, and then it'll help us better understand. It's our board members who are reviewing the applications, and they come from across the community, lots of different businesses. The clearer, kind of the more plain language you're using, the better. You are the experts, we are the learners in a lot of ways. Anticipating questions that we may have about your application and trying to provide those in the information you're providing is helpful. I know you don't read our minds, you can't do that, but just thinking about what someone on the outside might need to understand. Don't forget to list your community partners. If you're partnering with other nonprofits or community organizations, even if it's not directly related to the program or project that you're requesting or your impact request. If you regularly work with other nonprofit partners, it's really helpful to include that in your application where we ask that question. We may also be talking to that partner. They may also be providing a request, and there might be, it just helps us get to know you and them better and see how you work together, and just helpful for a lot of the work that we do in knowing kind of who's connected out there amongst the nonprofits that we work with. Your application should explain the need and how the need is being met by the work that you do. Include easy to read financials and project budgets. And this is obviously for the program and project applications, but for the project that you're pitching, we should be able to see revenue and expenses for either the if our funding covers the entire program and project, then obviously that would be the revenue, and then the expenses would explain how it's spent. If our grant is a part of funding for an overall project, we'd like to see that whole picture. The total funding for that project, our portion, and then all of the expenses. And then we do also ask for high level rolled up versions of your balance sheet and your current budget / profit and loss / statement of activities. These sometimes organizations use different words, but we do want those two pieces, your current balance sheet and your most recent profit and loss statement. And we always like to really understand, sometimes organizations tell us what benefit they provide and, what service they provide, but something that can sometimes be missing is how community members find you to take advantage of your service and to use what you provide. And that really helps us understand the through line of your work, where clients, participants are finding you. If you're working in schools and the school helps identify students who can benefit from your services, just make sure that information is in there. It helps us understand the full circle of your work. This is our application-based process, continues to be. That allows us to get applications every year to fund the areas of greatest needs in our community. The 3RCF Board of Directors are the worker bees on this. So they review, interview, and make all grant decisions. Kelsey and I get to do a lot of legwork to make sure they've got all the information they need to make those grant decisions. Eligibility remains the same for 501c3s serving Benton and Franklin counties, as well as churches doing non-denominational outreach. And just a short partial list of our most common funding restrictions. Capital campaigns and projects, fundraising campaigns, schools, PTOs, sports teams, sponsorship, re-granting. If you're pooling dollars together to do your own grant program, that's not an area that we generally fund. We cannot fund political or lobbying activities or discriminatory activities. Regarding capital campaigns and projects, this is a question we do commonly get. If your need is around improvements, renovations for accessibility, things like that. Capital campaign, I think we would pretty much consider a brand new building or kind of a gut renovation of a new building. So really large scale project. Some of those smaller improvements, renovations, accessibility adaptations are things that we would consider funding. So that can be a fine line. If you're not sure, give us a call and we can talk more about it and help figure out where that lands. On a different topic, but just something we do want to keep sharing, we do have these great online self-paced trainings for board essentials of nonprofit board governance and diversity, equity, and inclusion for nonprofit boards. I would actually say stay tuned. We are getting ready to roll out a resource that should help with the cost of some of the training. And we should have that information out, I think, by next week, working on some final details there. We have a great funder locally who has given us the ability to underwrite some of the costs. So look for that coming soon, just a little teaser. And just wanted to share who we are. So our board members who do all that great work on the grants, put in so much time and effort that time of year. Kelsey and I here as the staff team, and just our mission that we're living every day and working really hard on is to create opportunities for perpetual giving. That perpetual giving is what we use to support all you wonderful nonprofits in your work. And we really aim and will be here now and into the future. Whew, okay. I am gonna pop out of this screen so I can see the Zoom again, and we can open it up for questions in, I don't know if we're using the chat or the Q&A. I apologize here. I've got to figure this out for a second. Actually, I don't think I see the Q&A. I think we can use the chat. Is anyone trying to talk to us in the chat? I don't know. Let me open these up here. Can you see the chat?
I see a chat from you, Abby.
Good. Okay. Can anyone else see that and respond in the chat? I'm just not sure what's working here. I apologize. Maybe, maybe not. Okay, we're doing raising hands. That works too. Leanne, I'm finding you here. Oh, okay. There it is.
Hey, Abby.
Hi, Leanne.
Hi, it just says in the we're in a webinar chat. It says that the chat's disabled on my screen is what I'm seeing.
Okay.
Mine
Oh,
too.
I found the Q&A. Okay, we can go to the Q&A, folks. I think that's working. So disregard the chat, please. Thank you for that tip, Leanne. You know, this Zoom thing is not as easy as it looks sometimes. Okay, so please do post your questions in the chat. I see Trisha. When listing community partners, is it more or less likely that you will fund both parties if they are related to similar program? I think we are just trying to understand connections. We don't really use that information as an opportunity to compare or contrast. Because something that happens when we're reviewing grants is, what's an example? Someone's providing activities for veterans. Maybe that's what their grant application is about. But if they don't, we're going to wonder, well, are they working with the Columbia Basin Veterans Center? That's something that we're going to wonder in the application. So we would like to know that they are already have that connection. So that's information that we would look for. So I think that's the type of information that we're looking for, Trisha. I hope that helps with some perspective on that question. Okay, so I see your follow-up question. No, I don't think that would impact. We would, if you're applying for a grant for horse therapy, we would just want to know who that organization is, and then their application is for their work. We wouldn't really compare and contrast those against each other. We can understand the lines there. It's a very connected community, so I understand that. That comes up a lot. Simon is asking if one grant pathway will have more funding allocated towards it. At this point, we are not taking that approach with our pool of dollars. We're going to consider all of the applications from both pathways together, and focus on funding the things that we feel like we can support, that are efficient, that are effective, So we are not allocating a certain amount of funding between the two pathways. This is a learning year for us trying this approach. So at this point, we want to just take that approach and then if we need to reassess in the future, we'll of course do that. Any other questions from our friends? You know, I've talked to a few, as we've been thinking about this, I've kind of explored the topic with a few organizations that I've had other meetings and contacts with. And it's interesting, there's been organizations that I thought that the impact grant might be a great fit for them, but they had a project that they were really excited to apply for. And so it seemed like they were going to continue to apply in the program space. And so if you feel like that's the pathway for you, then that's great. You don't have to apply for an impact grant just because you meet those kind of general criteria of having a successful application in the last few years and meeting those kind of characteristics that I described. You still have full choice as to which one you prefer. Both of our pathways, Cynthia, do include general support for operational costs. That's what it takes to run things. So I would say that the impact pathway is the opportunity to get more flexible support, and then at the end of the program year, indicate that this paid for our program instructors, or this paid for our advertising or improvements or things like that. So we still want to understand what the operational need was, but it is that more flexible type of funding, and we understand it takes people and overhead to do things. Virginia, thank you so much for your comment on increased in available funding. It's something we work really hard at. We're very, very fortunate. We have very generous people in our community. We're also fortunate that our endowment is very healthy and growing on its own. That's a big part of how we are successful. So thank you for that. Thank you, Cindy. Glad to hear that you're here and the information was valuable. Cool. Well, I think we will start to wrap it up there and give you back the rest of your lunch hour. We are doing, like I said, the same content next week, so more folks can have the opportunity to tune in and ask questions. We are kind of keeping track of the questions, anticipating putting together an FAQ document on our website for this process, these processes. Yeah, we're just, we're trying something new. It's hard to change what you do as a grant maker. We understand, we have 59 partners who were funded last year. We understand that, changes, we don't want changes to be scary or drastic or change your opportunities. So we're really trying to do something that will improve opportunities and be more realistic for some of you in the way that your organizations work and respond. The PowerPoint is the same for the next session, Cynthia. The difference would be any questions that come out in this Q&A portion. But again, we're going to try and capture Q&A from both sessions. No, the questions are not the same for both grants because they have different purposes. Thank you for clarifying. So you will find different questions. You'll be able to preview those once the grants are up and posted. So you can see the questions before you fully choose which application you're going to pursue. And we'll probably, also post those on the webpage where the grant portal can be found. Okay, all right, I think we're going to wrap there. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to myself or Kelsey. It's KELSI@3RCF.org. She's is doing a great job, and I know is looking forward to getting to know you and your organizations. Thanks for joining us, and have a great rest of the day.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.